Hello and welcome to our first Wisden Ashes daily podcast from Lords. It's Australia's day. Only 5 down at the close after England won the toss and opted to bowl first on the cloudy skies with a pitch that was doing more than just a bit. Then Australia are definitely on top, but it could have been so much worse had it not been for that double strike from Root late in the day.
Yeah, it's just one of those stupid things that happens with this England team that you just got to give up trying to explain it. You know, you can add it to Harry Brook getting Kane Williamson in that crazy 1-run win at the end of the winter. You can add it to Usman Khawaja getting Yorks on 1-4-1 when Stokes makes the most obvious plan you can think of, putting everyone in front of him. It's like, he's going to bowl a Yorker, and that's what happens, and yet he still tries to squeeze it out and gets bowled. They pick spinners who have no sort of form or record behind them, and they take 6-ers or 5-ers, whatever it is in Pakistan on flat tracks that aren't offering them a huge amount. It's just what England do, and Root's a good off spinner, right? We shouldn't discredit Root in this. And the first ball especially was a nice piece of bowling, and I guess that's what Travis Head's approach brings. Like there were singles on offer, he could have just tucked it around all day, and he would have been It
was a very England dismissal, actually.
Yeah, it was just an England 4 balls actually. Like actually, you can very much imagine England's Cameron Green and Ben Stokes doing exactly that, right? Coming down the track, third ball to Nathan Lyon and plinking him to mid-on, except it was the opposite. And yeah, that was the other thing that's so weird, is because Australia have been so showily anti-England this whole time, right? They they put a deep point out from ball 1. They in the press conference, England name a team, 2 days out, and Australia keep their cards so close to their chest. Everything they've done is almost to make a point that they are the opposite of what this England team are. And for 4 balls, they kind of forgot that. And it has brought England back into the game, even if Australia's still ahead.
That Chelsea podcast asked, was that the worst day of the Stokes McCullum era so far? It really wasn't great. And even those 2 wickets, you can't really, Root probably does head in the air a little bit, but you can't really attribute that to England outdoing Australia at all. I thought England's seam attack were about maybe 60-70% all day, which isn't really good enough against a team like Australia. Broad and Anderson were decent enough with the new ball, but I think life was relatively straightforward for Warner and Khawaja given the conditions. There's that drop chance by Pope, whose shoulder is potentially a problem for England for the rest of the Test match and the series. And then there was Robinson. I asked QuickViz about Robinson's pace. His average was down about 4 mph in the morning session compared to what it was across the entirety of the Old Trafford Test against South Africa last year. That's a big difference between averaging 83 miles per hour and 79 miles per hour. Tongue bowled some brilliant deliveries. He got the first 2 wickets, but even then I thought he produced quite a few hit-me balls and looked quite tired towards the end of the day. There were too many no balls again. And I think the really frustrating thing was that this morning, when I was walking into the ground, you hear that England have won the toss and bowling first. The conditions felt very Edgbaston 2015 or Trent Bridge 2015 or Headingley 2019, where you felt that England could really run through Australia here if they got a few early wickets. And the frustrating thing is when Smith and Labuschagne came in, conditions had already begun to get better for batting. So even though England aren't out of the game, you feel that they could have been miles on top given the conditions, given that they won the toss. Who knows? We could be sitting here tomorrow and they've England and bowled Australia out for less than 400 and England start well and they're still on top. But conditions were so good for bowling at the start of the day in a way that they just weren't at all at Edgbaston, that you feel like it really is a big missed opportunity.
It's definitely a missed opportunity. And overall, yeah, Australia have had the better day. But it's also worth remembering with this England team that they have had bad days under and whole bad games under Stokes and McCullum. And actually, apart from that Pakistan tour, they actually haven't, they haven't blown sides away through whole games that much. They chase some big totals, and you chase big totals when you don't do that well in the first 3 innings. In the first day on Trent Bridge, New Zealand made 318 for 4. So that was, okay, that was a better pitch, but that's still a worse day overall than this one. After on the day 2 against India, Bumrah hit Broad for the world record runs in a test over, and then England were 84 for 5 at the end of the day. I think that's probably a worse day than this one. So they've had bad days, and they've shown that they can also recover from that, and also kind of shrug off bad days and make them not really feel like bad days. That was one of the weird things I remember in that India game. That at the end of day 2, you had to really go, oh, hang on, England are really far behind this game. That's weird. Why doesn't it feel like they're far behind? England haven't played very well and yet it somehow feels like they are still in it. And in the end, they
Yeah.
kind of were, and that's the same kind of thing here. Like, you kind of sort of think, oh, hang on, England are quite far behind, but still feel like there's a decent chance they could come back into it.
But I guess it was a day where England weren't great, but it had nothing to do with Bazball. Some people almost leaping the opportunity when they see England do anything that's not great. They want to criticise the philosophy, the strategy behind what's made England successful over the last year. But this has nothing to do with Bazball. It was simple as the bowlers weren't hitting their areas well enough. I mean, Robinson is one of my favourite bowlers in the world. He's, when you're down, your pace is down 5%. In a match as big as this, when the conditions are as good as that, that's not really good enough. And I think England were maybe slightly unlucky not to pick up one or two more wickets in the first two sessions. There were quite a few plays and misses. But overall, I don't think they can complain that much about the end of day situation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a stat you can look at two ways. So Australia left, there was a cricket was posted that they'd left 30 balls in the first session, which is more than England left on the whole of the Edgbaston test, which I think showed that England maybe weren't making Australia play enough. And the 31st ball they left hit Khawaja's off stump.
Yeah.
So that goes one of two ways. But yeah, I guess also the other two things that are kind of anti-Bazball about this. One is that in a way the Bazball thing to do would have been to pick Mark Wood. Like England have at times said, they're not really going to bother with rest and rotation too much. If they can get guys who are fit onto the park, they're going to do that and just pick the best attack they can for a given game, which is actively not what they've done here. They've held Mark Wood back to give him another Wood to get fit, which might be the smart thing to do, but it is a bit anti what they've gone through so far. And also plans wise, right? Like that was what was,
they didn't really do anything funky all day.
Yeah, that was what was so stark about the route thing, was that felt really like just plod along until the new ball. They didn't do the thing that they often do, which is stick loads of men on the boundary, start bowling bounces. They didn't have everyone in front of the bat, which and sometimes you can criticise England for going to that kind of thing too readily, and this pitch should have been the one where you can just plug away on off stump for long enough and you will get your reward. So in a way you can't blame them for that, but it's also they didn't do that, and that also didn't work for most of the day.
It could have been a lot worse for England. I mean, when Head and Smith were going, this felt like a day one in an Ashes in Australia. England picking a slightly weird side, like, as we said on the weekly pod, who would have predicted Josh Tongue to be in the England 11 for the Lord's Test match? You got bowlers who aren't 100% fit, and England haven't quite made the advantage of the bowling friendly conditions at the start of the day and have been properly punished afterwards. It could easily have been like 350 for 3 at the end of the day. Then Root sort of burgles 2 wickets in that over. You got that headless charge down the ground and then the mother of all miscues from Green. Guess it got a few people wondering, how good is Root as an off spinner? Because you almost wonder with the fitness concerns over a couple of bowlers in the England side, Anderson's 41 at the end of the month, Broad 37. Can Root actually fulfil the role as the team spinner without leeching the side?
Yeah, he's good, and he's also improving a lot, I think, actually. There's a reason why his average in Test cricket is still north of 40 with the ball, I think. Haven't checked it since those 2 wickets today, but I'm...
About 43, 44.
Yeah. I mean that is the average of a part-timer, and yet you watch him bowl sometimes like, hang on, this guy is better than that. I think it is because he has just got better. He's got a nice action. He's able to... I mean, you can see it when he bowls those bouncers. He can really drive the ball in a way that, good... decent test spinners do. And also his you don't hear as much talk about Root's back these days. I guess since the weight of the world lifted off his shoulders when Ben Stokes took over the captaincy, maybe that's lessened that a bit.
Point.
But he seems just to be fitter batting as well as he ever has and bowling as well as he ever has too.
Mark asks, why the hell do we keep playing at Lords? We never win. Why can't we just tear it down? It's a fair point. England's record at Lords really isn't very good, and I know it's particularly bad against Australia. I think they just won Test win against Australia at Lords in the last 90 years or something like that. But England have lost 6 tests at Lords in the last 10 years. I know they generally play 2 tests a year here, but it is a bit of a bogey ground for England.
Also got some troublesome spectators at Lords, don't they? With the
yes, so we can't finish the show without a nod to that iconic Bairstow manhandling of the Just Stop Oil protesters. It did look like Bairstow had a very set plan for how he's going to deal with them.
He did, yeah. I think there was also a brief moment, because Bairstow's a rugby fan, and it was a proper rugby tackle to begin with. But there was also a moment where you think like, oh, he could flip the legs up here and go for a sort of a Brano Driscoll-esque or a tackle on Brano Driscoll, a spear tackle, kind of drive, and obviously, thankfully, he didn't. But it was what a moment, and just the business-like manner with which he marched a long way while holding a full adult human.
It wasn't small.
Yeah, no, incredible moment. Also, we should pay some tribute to the photographers who just absolutely
incredible.
Nailed their brief there. Like Stu Forster and Ryan Pearce in particular. There's one, I don't know how Ryan Pearce managed to get the one with the orange dust framing it so perfectly, but it's incredible. And then one, so that's kind of like a poetically beautiful, just isolating Bairstow and the protester in like this sort of like in this maelstrom. And then you've got the Stu Forster one just captures the chaos brilliantly with Bairstow sort of on one, Warner kind of like holding his bat out, like a sort of defending himself. In the background, you've got Bairstow picking his guy up over his shoulder. Yeah, amazing.
At the end of the day, not a good day for England, but in a very England under Stokes McCullum, kind of inexplicably, they're kind of in it. Like, it really could be 400 all out. It's still got the new ball, only 2 or 3 overs bowled with it so far.
Pitch could flatten out as well, possibly.
Yeah. So actually, Australia definitely on top, but at one point it looking like England maybe 10 to 20% for the win when Head and Smith were batting together, but at the end of the day, maybe 30 to 40.
Yeah, I'd say 35% is about all right to stick it. Yeah, I mean, and hopefully just another really good game, I think.
Right, that's everything from day one at Lords. We'll be back tomorrow where we'll be joined by Butch.